What's up, guys? It's the weekend, and more importantly, it is week 3 of fantasy football. I'm going to be going game by game on who to start and who to sit. Let's get to it. First matchup, Texans at Steelers, with an over-under of 45, and the Steelers are favored by 4. Big Ben is at home, and we've gone over his extreme home road splits before, so you're starting Big Ben. Deontay and Juju, his top weapons, are also starts. They're both battling small injuries, but they're both on track to play this weekend. Sit Ebron until he takes a bigger role in the offense. Start James Conner whenever he's healthy, and sit Chase Claypool. Yes, he's a talented player, but just not enough volume on only 5 targets in 2 games. 2.5 targets a game is not worthy of a start. Watson is an auto start, even against a top 3 Steelers defense. You're good to start both Fuller and Cooks, as the defense has given up a decent amount of fantasy points to these positions. Just lower your expectations for the week. Each is just a flex play. The Texans don't have any startable tight ends. David Johnson is in a real tough position for the second straight week, but he's playing nearly 100% of the team's offensive snaps. I can't imagine you have a much better option. Just gotta hope that he gets some catches and finds the end zone. He's a start. Next we have Bears at Falcons with an over-under of 47.5, and the Falcons are favored by 3. Matt Ryan has been great, averaging 26.2 fantasy points through the first 2 weeks, and he's currently the QB6. So he's an auto start, although if you have the option between Matt Ryan and Matt Stafford, if Julio sits out, I think you should play Stafford, but Julio's a true game time decision. Julio's a must start if he's playing. He's seemingly always injured and plays through it. Calvin Ridley, auto start. Hayden Hurst has to be a start whether Julio plays or not. Either way, there's more targets that are coming Hurst's way against a Bears defense that isn't as dominant as we're accustomed to. Hate talking about Gurley so much, but purely because of volume, you gotta start him. He's a very low-end RB2 to a flex play. 37 touches through 2 games. You should want that from any running back, but what you don't want is his efficiency. He's not being used through the air like some had expected, and he literally has to fall into the end zone to pay off. Good luck, Gurley owners. Mitch Trubisky is startable. I never thought I would say that. Yes, he might be Blake Bortles in disguise, but he's been playing fine lately, and the Falcons have to be every QB's favorite matchup. Montgomery's looked awesome. The groin injury looks to be a thing of the past as he's been moving great. Start him. Sit Cohen. Nowhere near enough guaranteed volume, and as much as you probably don't want to, start Anthony Miller. He did literally nothing last week, but this is an awesome matchup. Allen Robinson is still an auto start. Jimmy Graham has to be a sit. There are other tight ends. Yeah, he did get a touchdown in week 1, but if he doesn't score that TD, he only has 43 yards on the season, so it's not worth the risk. Rams at Bills, with an over-under of 46.5, and the Bills are favored by 2. Josh Allen is making all of his fantasy owners so happy, averaging an outrageous 31 fantasy points through the first 2 weeks. You're starting him until he starts to put up small numbers. Diggs is an auto start. He does have to go against Jalen Ramsey, one of the toughest matchups he'll see all season, but Diggs and the Bills' offense is playing way too well not to start him. Devin Singletary is an easy start with Zach Moss out for week 3 with a toe injury. And John Brown is currently a top 10 fantasy wide receiver. With Diggs going against Ramsey, Brown should be a great start this week. Josh Allen's deep ball is on point against the first 2 easy Bills matchups. Let's see if the Bills can keep this streak going against a disruptive Rams defense. Goff, Kupp, Woods, Higbee, all starts. The Bills have a great defense, but the Rams offense is rolling, so start them all up. With Akers likely out this week and Malcolm Brown battling a thumb or finger injury, Henderson should lead this backfield in touches against the Bills' very stout run defense. Henderson is more than capable as a receiving back and played very well when given the opportunity last week. Hopefully he can keep the offseason hype alive and have a good week 3. Henderson is a start. Malcolm Brown is a sit. Next we have Washington at Browns with an over-under of 45, and the Browns are favored by 7. Browns, Browns, Browns. Sit Baker Mayfield. He's just not good. There's so many other better options at quarterback, and the Washington D-line is for real. The big three of Sweat, Kerrigan, and Young are harassing O-lines and quarterbacks. PFF ranks them in the top 5 best D-lines coming into the year and to start the year. Odell has lowered expectations for himself, and so should you. Fingers crossed for all Odell owners, including myself, that he gets traded to a team with a half-competent quarterback. Odell is a start this week in a game in which the Browns are favored. Again, though, lower your expectations. Odell's nothing more than a high-end flex, very low-end wide receiver 2 right now. Sit Jarvis and Hooper. Jarvis isn't producing, perhaps still hindered by his hip injury, and Hooper is averaging less than 3 fantasy points per game. I didn't expect things to be this bad for Hooper, but he was always an easy player to avoid in drafts. Start Chubb and Hunt. Super simple there. Chubb should see plenty of work in a game script in which the Browns should be leading, and Hunt sees plenty of volume in the run and pass game regardless of game script. Start both. As for Washington, there's really no reason to start Haskins. Scary Terry is an auto start, even with going against an elite cornerback Denzel Ward. I'm not sure why, but Ward didn't practice on Friday. Regardless, we saw what McLaurin did against Patrick Peterson last week. No one can keep up with his speed, quickness, and route running ability. He's an auto start. The only other receiving options to consider would be Logan Thomas, and he's only startable in 14-team leagues because of the volume and matchup. The Browns are seemingly always bottom of the league when it comes to defending the tight end position, but he's only startable in 14 teams. Antonio Gibson is a start, but with low expectations as a flex play. He's looked good, it's just that Washington doesn't. Hopefully they can figure it out and get Gibson more in space as the year goes on. Next, Titans at Vikings, with an over-under of 49.5, and the Titans are favored by 2.5. Easy analysis for the Vikings. Start Thielen, start Dalvin Cook, that's it. The rest of this offense needs to remain on the bench because they're just terrible. You're sitting Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Irv Smith Jr. On the Titans side, Derrick Henry is an auto start. And Tannehill, he has another great matchup this week against one of the league's most disappointing defenses. Enjoy starting Tannehill this week because weeks 4 and 5, the Titans matchups are not as fantasy friendly. Steelers, Bills in back-to-back weeks. Johnny Smith has been an awesome start, so start him in all formats and league sizes. And Corey Davis is another start, as A.J. Brown is indeed going to miss another week. Raiders at Patriots, with an over-under of 47.5 and New England's favored by 5.5. Running QBs. That is all I gotta say. Top 5 quarterbacks to start the year are Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, Cam Newton, Kyler Murray, and Dak Prescott, all rushing QBs. Start Cam everywhere. He's averaging 30 fantasy points through the first 2 weeks. You gotta love it. No Patriots RBs are startable right now. Michelle is terribly inefficient, and all of the backs that are currently available against the Raiders do not get enough volume to even be considered in your fantasy lineups. N'Keal Harry is a nice sleeper start in 14-team leagues and bigger. Julian Edelman is a wide receiver 2 right now. He's playing very well with Cam, and let's hope it holds up, because he was taking some big hits in last weekend's shootout against the Seahawks. For the Raiders, I'm not brave enough to start mediocre QBs against the Patriots' defense, even with all of the defensive player opt-outs. Carr is a sit versus a Belichick defense that always seems to know how to exploit opposing QBs. Darren Waller is an auto start. With Ruggs out, there's no Raiders wide receivers to start this weekend. Auto start Josh Jacobs. Next is Niners at Giants, with an over-under of 42, and the Niners are favored by 3.5. This is quite the interesting matchup. Two teams who have just been decimated by injury. The only 2 startable players for the Giants are Darius Slayton and Evan Ingram. The RB situation is just a huge unknown that we need clarity on. Daniel Jones will have his time, it's just after this rough stretch of games to begin the season. For the Niners, No reason to start Garoppolo's replacement in Nick Mullins. With Coleman and Mostert both missing time with knee injuries, McKinnon is an RB2 and Jeffrey Wilson is a flex option. They're both starts against the subpar Giants defense. Niners RBs seem to always be successful in fantasy. It's usually just difficult to know who will succeed. With all these injuries, now we know the only two that are healthy. Currently, the only startable receiving option is Jordan Reed, as Kittle's missing one more week with that knee sprain. Hopefully, both teams can stay healthy, playing once again at MetLife Stadium. Bengals at Eagles. With an over-under of 47, and the Eagles are favored by 5. Eagles' defensive line is disruptive enough to merit sitting Burrow, but the Eagles' defense isn't that much to be afraid of. He's startable in 14-teamers. A.J. Green continues to see more and more targets. He should be a start. Boyd is a risky play here. His Week 2 performance was bailed out by some garbage time receptions and a touchdown. Boyd can go either way this week, but I'm going to call him a sit for now. I don't think Burrow will throw 60 passes too many more times this year. Mixon is still a reluctant auto start even against a good run defense. Start Drew Sample. He had 9 targets and not even a full game. For the Eagles, this should be a bounce-back game for all Eagles players. I mean, it's the Bengals defense. Start Sanders, Wentz, Ertz, Goddard, and Deshaun Jackson. Jets at Colts, with an over-under of 44.5. Jonathan Taylor, probably the start of the week candidate, with Indy favored by a massive 11.5 points. Just another reminder, Adam Gase is out of his league. One of the rare sits this week is Rivers. There's just no reason to start Rivers in any league with so many great matchups at the QB position this week. Only consider Rivers in 2 quarterback leagues. If Jack Doyle's out, you can start Mo Cox, but he's a sit if Jack Doyle ends up playing. Doyle is officially questionable, so continue to monitor the situation. Hilton has a get-right game this week against a terrible Jets secondary. Pittman is a start in 14-team leagues and deeper with Paris Campbell out. Hines is a sit until we see him play more in Jonathan Taylor's backfield. Sorry, Jets fans, start no one. Moving on. Panthers at Chargers, with an over-under of 43.5, and the Chargers are favored by 6.5. The Chargers have an awesome matchup. This channel has previously hated on Justin Herbert and the Chargers' decision to draft him so early, but he played great in his first NFL action against the Chiefs. He's a good start in deeper leagues. A combination of the matchup and Herbert starting over Tyrod Taylor gives a boost to Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry, and Austin Eckler. They're all starts. Joshua Kelly is getting more and more volume. He's essentially the replacement for Melvin Gordon. Start him up. Mike Williams is additionally a start. He just doesn't get an upgrade this week with Herbert starting, because him and Tyrod seem to have a good connection. For the Panthers, the only starts are Mike Davis as the true replacement for CMC, as well as DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. Sit Ian Thomas, Teddy Bridgewater, and Curtis Samuel. Bucks at Broncos, with an over-under of 43, and the Bucks are favored by 5.5. Brady has all of his weapons. While he hasn't always played that well against the Broncos in the past, the Broncos are without many of their key defensive players, including Von Miller. Even Bradley Chubb is still on a snap count. Brady is a start, although you probably have to lower expectations even with all of his weapons back. Start the obvious, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and put all Bucks tight ends on the bench, especially Gronk. I'm not sure if you can even start either of the running backs for the Bucks with confidence. Ronald Jones fumbled last week, which really muddies the waters. I'm listing both of them as a sit against a pretty solid rush defense. For the Broncos, with all the injuries, there's only 3 starts right now. Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, and Melvin Gordon. Fant and Gordon have been awesome, and Jerry Jeudy will get his shot as the number 1 receiver in this offense. KJ Hamler is someone to look out for in future weeks, but it's better to be a week late than a week early. Sit KJ Hamler. Lions at Cardinals, with an over-under of 55.5, and the Cardinals are favored by 5.5. This is going to be a high-scoring matchup. Kyler, D-Hop, and Kenyon Drake are all great starts. Even with Kirk out, still sit Fitz, and sit Dan Arnold. There's just not enough volume. For the Lions, Stafford is a start with Galladay on track to play. Hawkinson and Marvin Jones are also starts. I'm still waiting for Marvin Jones to have a boom game. Fingers crossed that it's this one. Hawkinson is a great start as the Cardinals still have a very bad defense against the tight end. As for running backs, this is a true running back by committee. DeAndre Swift can be a low-end flex play in PPR and half PPR formats. Carry-on and AP are very risky plays. I'm calling them both sits. There's just not enough volume for either, and it's tough when they're not utilized in the passing game. Cowboys at Seahawks. Over under a 57, and the Seahawks are favored by 5. All aboard the Double Dutch Rust bus. You're starting everyone, projected to be the highest scoring matchup of the week. There's no analysis needed. Packers at Saints. An over under of 52.5, and the Saints are favored by 3. With Michael Thomas and Devontae Adams both out, this matchup is less exciting than it should be. However, still projected to be a high scoring affair. With Michael Thomas out another week, Emmanuel Sanders just can't seem to put together a good game and is struggling to find separation. This feels wrong to say in what should be a high-scoring matchup, but Emmanuel Sanders is a sit. Traquan Smith played well in last week's game without Michael Thomas, and he should probably only be started in 14-team leagues or if you really need a flex play in 12 teams. Jared Cook is a fine start. The target's gotta go somewhere, and Kamara is just a stud. This video is getting a little long, so I'm gonna try to do the rest of the start sits pretty quick. Start Rodgers, start MVS, and Lazard. MVS and Lazard are both flex plays, and obviously you're starting Aaron Jones. Chiefs at Ravens. Over under a 54.5, and the Ravens are favored by 3.5. Is there really any reason to sit anyone? No. Start everyone, obviously. Hardman is the only player that's only a start in 14 teams, but this should be a pretty awesome high-scoring game. If you want more quality content to crush your league, subscribe so you don't miss anything. And drop a comment if you have any specific start-sit questions or need help on trade targets. I'll see you guys on the next vid.